In my hands, I have two of the best current blade offerings on the market today, and in today's video, we're putting them head to head to see which one comes out on top. So let's get right into it. Right guys, so in case you have not seen some of my recent videos, there have been two irons on the market that I have been absolutely enamored with during my recent testing, and those irons are the Srixon Z-Forge 2 and the Mizuno Pro 241 blades. Now while both of these irons are technically blade offerings, they are relatively different in terms of design, and in this video, we're going to be putting them head to head and really trying to make an official decision on which of these I will likely be gaming in my bag. Per usual with our videos, we'll be doing all of our testing today off grass using GC Quad to see how these stack up in real world conditions. Obviously, I'll be talking you guys through my thoughts as I test these, but once we're done, we're gonna go ahead and pick a winner between these two heads in 5 different categories: looks, feel, turf interaction, workability, and forgiveness, and then from there, pick an overall winner between these two blades. We have both of these heads built up in pitching wedge, 8-iron, and 6-iron, and as always, they're all spec, loft, and shaft match as well to ensure that we're delivering to you the most fair testing possible. All that being said, we're out here on the driving range now, so let's get into testing. Alrighty guys, so the way we're going to work through this testing is we're going to start with the Srixon Z-Forge 2 pitching wedge, then we'll move up into the Mizuno Pro 241. Let's go ahead and get started. Taking a look down at this Srixon Z-Forge 2 pitching wedge, things I notice immediately: the head size. It's a bigger head size for a blade. I like it. I think it looks really good. It really looks like most OEM's CB from a size perspective. In terms of shaping with this head, very straight shape. It's just not quite as soft, not quite as maybe traditionally blade styled, if you will. In terms of offset on this pitching wedge, pretty much none. But let's go ahead and hit this thing and see what we got. We'll start with some fuller ones. Numbers there: 130 carry, 25 launch, 10,000 spin, 102 ball. A little bit low on the face, but I've kind of come to expect that from these Srixons. Just got that little bit higher lead edge bounce. Again, 130, 103, 26.4, 10,000. You know, a few people have talked about these maybe not being the most consistent blades, especially a little bit higher on the face. I mean, the thing you guys got to realize is that's going to happen with any blade. And, you know, especially an iron like this where it's going to gravitate towards someone who's a little bit on the steeper side because of this V-sole, those types of players have a better chance of catching it higher on the face and having those balls come out with a little bit less spin. So that can happen. And that's just, you know, part of golf clubs in general. You're catching it above the center of gravity. But, you know, if you're shallower like me, I don't tend to take super big divots when I'm hitting it well. I just haven't noticed that at all. 136, 104, 24, 9,300. I mean, just very consistent ball speed. That was definitely my best strike, which is why the ball speed went up a little bit, carry went up a little bit. Now we'll go ahead and move into some flighted ones. 103, 134, 22, 9,400. 101, 131, 23, 9,200. I mean, just very solid. You know, the one thing I would say you have to be cognizant of, because I'm a shallower player, I'm not leaning the shaft a lot through impact. You can definitely feel this ribbon a little bit through the ground, and it can tend to deflect off the turf a little bit if you're not careful, especially firmer turf. Now, this is softer turf, but I have noticed off firmer turf, you can kind of feel that deflect. So something to keep in mind. It hasn't really caused many big inconsistencies, but there's definitely going to be people out there who do not like that feeling. So getting into this Mizuno Pro 241 pitching wedge, taking a look down at this thing, I mean, it's just a much different shape from the Srixon. First and foremost, it's a softer shape. It's just a lot more rounded, I would say, generally speaking, looking at the head. The other thing that you got to notice is it's just smaller. I mean, there's really no other way around it. To me, that looks like most OEM CB from a size perspective, and this really just looks like what you would expect a Mizuno blade to look like. So maybe a little bit of a pull. That's on me. 101, 129, 24.3, 10,200 spin. I mean, just very similar numbers. I don't really expect these to be crazy different in terms of numbers. I would say feel-wise, it's close. I think I would give the slight edge to Mizuno in terms of softness. Yeah, it's just a slightly softer feel. It's really minimal. 101, 129, 24.2, 10,000 again. Very, very consistent numbers. See, but what's funny is that one was a little bit of a miss, and what I've noticed is that although the centered shots on the Mizuno I think feel better than the Srixon, the misses on the Srixon tend to feel better. So it's definitely pretty interesting from that perspective. In terms of numbers, 100 ball, 128 carry, 24 one launch, 9,700 spin. So very, very consistent, even on a slight miss. We'll go ahead and move into some flighted ones now. Again, a little toey, and it's just a little bit harsher than the Srixon when you miss it. 123.23, 9400. That one was a good one, and it's just got that super nice, soft Mizuno feel through the ground. 125 carry, 23.9 launch, 9,700, and 97 ball speed. So those are the pitching wedges, close, but some slight differences you can tell. Let's go ahead and move up into the 8 irons now. Really quickly, guys, couple things I want to add before we get back to our testing. First and foremost, Painter golf shoes. These are the most comfortable, best golf shoes I've ever worn. They've been a huge supporter of the channel, and I absolutely love them. If you want to grab a pair, use code TEJ, and it will give you a little bit of a discount. Second of all, we are out here at the beautiful Kemper Lakes Golf Club. They are allowing us to be out here filming this summer. It is honestly one of my favorite golf courses, not just in Chicago, but frankly in the country. I love it every time I play it. Huge shout out to them. Let's get back to our testing. Right, guys, so now moving up into the 8 irons, we're going to start with the Srixon, taking a look down at this thing. I mean, similar to the pitching wedge, it's a bigger head, it's a straighter shape. It looks really good to me, and there's still pretty much no offset, especially because I have this bent 1 degree weak to hit the lofts I'm looking for. I mean, from a looks perspective, it's hard to beat, man. It's just really, really nice. Yeah, and that one was slightly low-faced, and it just retains the feel on the missed strikes a little bit better than the Mizuno. 161, 117, 21.4, 71.50, so a little bit lower spin there, possibly golf ball, but other than that, very, very nice numbers. It's funny though, and like I mentioned with the pitching wedge, that one I bottomed a hair early, and you can just feel it kind of catch the middle of that sole a little bit through the ground. Numbers wise, 158, 117, 8,200, 22. So it doesn't do a lot to the numbers, but it's just that feeling through the turf that maybe isn't quite as smooth as the Mizuno for a shallower player. We'll go cut now. Solid. 150, 113, 23, 9,000. Very nice numbers there. For me, with the cuts, they're usually going to be about a club shorter in terms of carry, and that's exactly in that window. Now we'll go bigger draw here. That was very thin and harsh, but not horrific. 116, 164, 5,700, 16.1. So that one went a little bit further. Maybe a little bit of an aggressive drop and spin, but probably golf ball. Now we'll go flighted. Yeah, very nice. 156, 6,400, 112, 18. Hard to be mad at those numbers, man. If I'm critiquing anything, maybe a hair low spin, but I can't completely blame the head for that. We'll have to see how the Mizuno looks spin-wise before I kind of break down those numbers at all. So we'll go ahead and move up into the Mizuno Pro 241 8 iron. Take a look down at this thing. I mean, again, similar to the pitching wedge, smaller head, softer shape, just a very traditional blade in terms of shaping. But yeah, feel-wise out of the center, still, I think, a little bit softer. In terms of numbers, 156, 115, 22, 7,700. Definitely a little bit more grab through the turf compared to the Srixon, just because of the slightly lower bounce on this sole compared to how aggressive that front edge relief is. But in terms of numbers, again, really good. 158, 117, 22, 7,800. Very, very consistent. But yeah, just bottomed a little early and definitely not quite as forgiving as the Srixon. But what I love about this Mizuno, the numbers stay consistent, I feel like. Very, very good. 159, 7,500, 22, 117. So even though it looks kind of intimidating from a size perspective, the numbers are awesome, man. I mean, they're very good. It's more forgiving than you would think it would be. We'll go cut now. Nice, I pinched that really well. 150, 8,100, 23, 112. Now we'll go bigger draw. Little thin, just like the Srixon one. Didn't drop quite as much in spin, but definitely still low. 6,800, 154, 15.8, 112. Right, guys, now we are on to the 6 irons. Again, starting with the Srixon Z-Forge 2. Looking down at this thing, very similar to the pitching wedge in the 8 iron. A little bit of a bigger head. Really, really nice straight shape. This looks honestly phenomenal to me. I mean, I really can't complain much. There's definitely a hair of offset, but it's, you know, we're just splitting hairs at this point. Really good. 186, 6,000, 129, 16.7. Perfect numbers. Little thin. 185, 127, 17, 5,500. We'll go cut. Bottomed early with the V-sole, kind of saved me. 174, so really good numbers, very similar to my 7 iron. 6,800, again similar to my 7 iron. 124 ball, and then 18.5 launch. So this thing's hard to beat, man. I mean, it's solid. A little bigger draw now. not the biggest draw, not the best strike, but 186, 127, lower launch, ball was further back, makes sense, 5,000 spin. All right, let's go ahead and move up into this Mizuno Pro 241 6-iron. Again, shaping-wise, smaller, softer, a little bit more offset on the 6. You can kind of tell it's there, but I'm not gonna sit here and complain about the offset. It's very, very minimal. I mean, really, the difference is when you start to get into this 6-iron, this looks intimidating, and the Srixon looks not so much. That doesn't feel like a blade, and this really starts to feel like a blade as you get down into the longer clubs. That is very, very nice though. 185, 5,800, 128, 16.3. 128, 182, 6,600, 15.9, not my best strike. And I really think that that's where you start to see the difference. I mean, you can just get away with more missed strikes in the Srixons compared to these. Try to really end on a good strike here. Just not the best strike. Bottomed a little early. 128, 183, 16.2, 6,300. So I mean, the numbers do stay very consistent, which has, been the big thing for me with these Mizunos, but definitely just a little bit easier to miss strike, I think. Now we're gonna go fade. Nice. 176, 67, 125, 17.1. Really good. I mean, if you can get the leading edge on the golf ball pretty consistently, these feel amazing. It's just a question of, do you struggle bottoming out a little bit earlier? Because I'm shallow, that's where I tend to struggle a little bit, and that's where you can kind of feel these grab and dig a little bit more compared to the Srixons. But that being said, that concludes my testing. Let's go over my final conclusions. Right, guys, so that was our testing of the Srixon Z Forge 2 versus the Mizuno Pro 241. Final conclusions, we're gonna go over 5 different categories: looks, feel, turf interaction, workability, and then forgiveness. Let's go ahead and start with looks. We'll start with the Srixon Z Forge 2. This is going to have a little bit bigger head size, like I talked about, a little bit straighter shape. The Mizuno Pro 241, a little bit smaller head size, a little bit softer shape. Now, this category obviously is very subjective. I think it really depends what you like to see. Me personally, I do prefer the Srixon Z Forge 2 from a looks perspective, and really the reason being is I love to play blades. I love the consistency that they offer, but I don't really like to look at a super small head, and these fit the bill perfectly. They play like blades, but they do not look small in terms of the head size. This really looks like your traditional blade, and the Srixon Z Forge 2 really kind of looks like a modern update to what you've always come to think a blade is supposed to look like. Getting up into feel now, we'll start with the Mizuno Pro 241. Out of the center, this thing feels incredible. Very buttery blade, sort of Mizuno feel, if that makes sense. But the thing about the Mizuno Pro 241 is as soon as you start to miss it, that feel drops off pretty drastically. Now, with the Srixon, it feels nice and soft out of the middle, but it probably isn't quite as soft as a Mizuno. The thing about the Srixon I love though is even when you're missing this thing, low on the face, heel or toe, it retains a little bit more softness compared to the Mizuno. So for me, it's kind of a tie. I prefer how the Srixon retains feel on off-center strikes, but I would say out of the middle of the face, it's very hard to beat the feel of a Mizuno blade. Now, as we move up into turf interaction, we'll start with the Mizuno Pro 241. I've talked about it before. I really like the added bounce on these 241s. I think they have become a lot more playable than the predecessor 221. It's definitely still a blade. You definitely have to be precise in terms of controlling low point, but it allows you a little bit of help in terms of bottoming out early, maybe even getting a little bit too steep, and you can kind of get away with it numbers-wise. That being said, the Srixon Z Forge 2 in terms of turf interaction, obviously with steeper players, this V-sole is amazing. It allows you to get steep and not get super diggy in terms of the turf interaction, but even somebody who's shallower like me, I don't feel like this V-sole plays with way too much bounce. That being said, the thing you got to be cognizant of with this Srixon is going to be the ribbon in the middle of the sole. Now look, I think that the ribbon is going to be totally fine for the majority of people, but it's definitely something to note that it is there, and I think definitely off of specific odd lies, you could have some slight issues with this thing deflecting off of the turf because it's catching on this middle portion of the sole, and that might sound crazy to some of you guys, but a good example of this happening is if you look at Vokey wedges and a lot of those guys out on tour, they actually have the wedge reps grind off the ribbon. If you look at grinds like the A+, for example, the A grind, they've actually taken like a T or an M and they've smoothed out the sole so there's no ribbon. They don't feel that through the turf. So I don't think this is going to be an issue for the majority of people, but if you're a higher level player who has a little bit more of a heightened sense of feel, it's definitely something to note that you're going to have to probably think about if you're considering these irons. In terms of workability, we'll start with the Mizuno Pro 241. I mean, this thing's a blade. You can hit it high, low, draw it, fade it. You can pretty much do exactly what you would expect with this iron. And to be honest with you guys, I think I would be crazy to say anything different about the Z Forge 2. These are are very, very close in terms of workability. The slightest edge I might give is just to the fact that the Srixon has this V-sole. So if you're somebody who likes to get really, really steep and kind of hit super low trajectory iron shots, you might have a little bit of an easier time doing it with the Srixons, but very, very close. It would be tough for me to pick one of these over the other. Getting up into forgiveness now, Mizuno Pro 241. You know, the thing about this iron is out of the toe, out of the heel, low on the face, it does a pretty good job. You know, it's one of those irons where I do think the numbers stay pretty consistent no matter where you're hitting it, which is why this iron is very impressive to me. That being said, it's going to be really hard to beat the Srixon Z-Forge 2 in terms of forgiveness. I mean, you can hit this thing very low on the face, very heel, very toe, and to me, it kind of plays like a CB from a forgiveness perspective, and the V-sole, once again, really, really helps from a forgiveness perspective. So it's close. I think these play more forgiving than they look, but I would give the forgiveness category to the Srixon Z-Forge 2. These are just something different in terms of a blade. As a whole, guys, both of these are super solid blade offerings. I think you'd be hard-pressed to be disappointed with either one of these, but I gotta give it to the Srixon Z-Forge 2. This thing is really something special. The one change I think they could make when they go to update these is maybe instead of having this distinct ribbon in the middle, maybe smooth this out and just have this iron have a little bit more camber so you don't really feel that ribbon through the turf. That's about the only thing I would say that they could fix about these. Other than that, they're pretty much perfect. They look great. They're very forgiving. This is just a super, super solid modern day blade offering. That being said, it's been a fun video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments down below or shoot me a DM via Instagram. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and you click that notification bell so you're notified anytime that we post a new video. Additionally, make sure you're following us on our other social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Always great content on those channels as well. We'll catch you in the next video. Peace.